supposed to start?
Unless you want to go take a coffee break.
I'm just wondering what the timing is. I have no idea.
We had 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But I'd say we could start, right?
Okay.
Recording started.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm Mark Roth, and I work with the MassMEP as their Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing subject matter expert. I also have a business called Spinnaker Ventures, where we do road mapping and stuff like this.
And Brian Kononchuk, I work for Boston Engineering. I run our Industry 4.0 initiatives with MassMEP as well as Spinnaker Ventures and some of our partners and customers directly to really help them figure out what their I4.0 roadmap is and then help get their implementation.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourselves, who you are, where you're from.
Paul Brown from Guardian Corporation.
Which corporation is there?
Guardian Corporation.
Guardian, yeah.
Eric Borghetti, running the product initiative with Gemlight in Lawrence, Mass.
Mike really, same company.
Same company.
Joe Carapezza, engineering and from some fiber optics company in Charlotte. Did you say Boston Engineering?
Yeah.
Okay. I used to work with Trieber and
Okay. That's one.
Smithers back in the day.
I think he's in the next room over doing an SBR.
Bob is?
Mark.
Oh, Mark. Smithers.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll say hello.
Yeah, we all know.
Mike Baroni from Live Automation.
Joe Iannone, Beacon Medtech Solutions, custom injection molding.
Injection molding?
Yep.
Rich LaBelle, I represent the corporation power management, UPS products.
Okay, cool.
You're worried by medical and Western Mass.
Yep.
Robbie Denham, I work in Live Research and Development Center for Team System.
David Doe, I work at Randolph Engineering.
Same company, I'm Brandon Hall, process engineer.
Okay.
Bobby Davis, I'm also with Boston Engineering.
Greg Sibular with Mac Prototype, president there, and we do rapid prototyping and low volume manufacturing.
I'm Samuel Westby, I'm at Northeastern
Northeastern. Faculty?
University. No, PhD. I'm in grad school.
You're a graduate. Okay. Are you studying manufacturing?
Yeah, I studied trends in manufacturing from the economics side, looking at the labor force.
Yep. Economics. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like actually we have some folks who are actually trying to make things in their businesses today. Would that be true in this session? So that's good. What's that?
That's an accurate
statement.
Gotta sell it.
Huh?
Mickey's one thing, sells it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the goal.
Yeah, but you got to put both of those together to make some money, I think. So what we want to talk about today a little bit is all the smart manufacturing concept, Industry 4.0 stuff. The whole idea that you heard this morning about creating that digital purpose statement, or what was referred to as this morning, is really how do you get there. So what we're talking about is a way to think about a strategy, a roadmap for how to implement and go digital and implement digital technologies in Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing business. Because largely, especially if you're running a small business, it's really hard to do that. You can't really afford the, computer scientists and data scientists and all these other people in technology, people who put the technology to work that you hear about. And we want to demystify that. So, first of all, I think we all heard about this Industry 4.0. It's the real-time intelligent digital networking of people, processes, and equipment. We really want to focus on people. Again, and I think you heard that this morning. The whole issue of how we include people in all this as part of the information system is essential to what we're trying to do. You can't leave those guys out. And as you think about that, you generally see a wheel like this in Industry 4.0 that has technology on it. You'll have robotics and analytics, and it'll have 3D printers and all these kinds of machines on there. But we think the right way to think about this is to really think about those are point solutions. So when somebody tells you to go buy a robot, the robot vendor comes in and says, I'm going to sell you this robot, here's the ROI on the robot, here's why it's going to be good for you. That's a point solution. How do you know a robot's the right answer for your business? How are we gonna organize a plan for your business to drive more revenue? So if we start working on operational efficiency in your business, right, that's gonna create more capacity in your business. Shouldn't we use that capacity to drive more high margin revenue? So what's the revenue opportunity? What's the overall business case for going digital? And therefore, based on that business case as to what's gonna make a difference to increase the economic performance of your business, to invest in this digital technology and to what sequence roadmap by which to implement that digital technology is right for your business is what really we think needs to come first. A strategy and a roadmap to get there. So we're really interested in that. When you think about that, we're really interested in things like top line growth. So how are we really going to drive revenue? If you keep doing lean, and we all know about lean and operational improvement, how that creates, lowers our costs. That's also, isn't it going to also increase your capacity to do more? So what are you going to do with that extra capacity? What's the best way to understand how to drive higher margin revenues from that extra capacity? How can you under-operate in the marketplace? So how can you use digital technology to connect to your customers and integrate to your supply chain so as to turn that operational improvement into a more efficient, higher margin, higher revenue generating business with the assets you already have. And then use the benefit of the first steps you take in the roadmap to provide the economics that you need, provide the money you need to invest in the next thing, then maybe invest in that robot if the robot's doing things, or 3D printers, or other technologies that are going. So we think it's all about the top line growth of the business as it complements your operational improvement through things like lean. And then there's always risk mitigation. So as a result, if we start thinking in a business sense, we start thinking about, well, how do we get, maybe we need predictive maintenance because we really want to impact our time to market, have better time to market, better dependable fulfillment of our orders. We're increasing sales by having better insight into our customer. That's a digital problem, just like operating your machines on the floor is a digital problem. Being able to look at what you have and what you provide, have an add-on recurring revenue service maybe to what you do, and not just have to sell it again the next time. So what is it that you do and what does it provide and what special knowledge do you have that might be valuable to your customers? And then of course coming down to things like resource management, demand forecasting and process automation that act around the operational efficiency part of your business mostly. So the bottom line is we really want to try to we want to encourage you, just as you heard this morning, to take a strategic perspective on your business, understand what the mission really means, how to define it in the context of your business, and build a roadmap that's sensible for your business to start taking advantage of digital technology, and to do it in a way where we can harvest the low-hanging fruit of the data already in your business, to take the first step, use that data to have insights to do the kinds of improvements on the top and the bottom line that are necessary to generate the money to make the next investment in your journey down the road, rather than just be faced with a big investment up front. So how do you really create value and drive new sources of revenue while you're driving? Operational efficiency is what we're talking about. This digital technology has all sorts of capabilities to do different things, and a lot of it seems very whiz-bang, but what we want to show you today is some really simple ways to get started down this path that are basically self-service before you have to go and call the experts. So another way to think about it is with respect to lean. Here's this lean line here. I think everybody in here knows about lean and Kaizens and techniques for improving the operations there. And I assume you all practice them and use them in your operations as best you can. Okay, so that's a really well-known technique. And Deloitte here, this comes from Deloitte, is trying to help us understand that in the context of lean, They're really saying you have to go digital. So let's move from being on paper and move to being digital. And let the whole process be driven from a digital perspective.
Yeah, I mean, when you think digital, you think lean. You can see how the blue line really flattens out. But once you go digital, it really exponentially increases. But that's all because you're connecting people to the data that you're collecting, your processes, your very manual business process, your SOPs that are probably still paper shoved in a drawer somewhere or in a binder. Now they're accessible. They're at the fingertips of your employees or staff. They're no longer needing to go find that piece of paper in a filing cabinet. They're pulling it up on their laptop, their phone, their whatever, to step through whatever procedure they have to do. Going digital is all about connecting people to other people, your business processes, to data that's being collected and analyzed.
So there's a guy that we worked with in the past. He was a fellow at Foxborough Company, the process control company down in Foxborough. They got bought by Invensys, which then sold it to a company called Schneider. That's the way it goes. But Dr. Peter Martin, a fellow there, he had a really interesting concept that really led to a lot of enablement in the power industry for generating power utilities, power generation capabilities in oil and gas, because that's really where Foxborough was, making these fancy process control systems for these big chemical plant type operations. And he wasn't really an engineer, but he made a really big mark on the industry. He had a concept called measure, empower, and improve. And so the whole point of that was, first of all, if you can measure, if you can take the data you have around the house, even the simplest data that's already there, capture that data, and then take that data and empower your workforce, empower everybody on the factory floor, everybody in your operations with the same information you have access to in where you're running your business, that you're going to cause those people to be empowered, because suddenly they'll be able to see how they're doing with respect to their peers, how the business is doing, how their contribution is being made to make the business run better, to hit that cost structure you want, to improve the process, to improve revenue. How's the business doing and how am I contributing? That empowerment causes those people to now just take action and want to improve things as a natural course. It's just a human behavior. They want the company to be there next year, for their job to be there. They want it to do better. They want to do better. They want their peers to do better. So people start to suddenly come together around the data. So what's really important isn't so much how magically we're going to make fancy, AI problems out of this data, but more how we give that data to the whole community within our business to enable everybody to perform better.
Yeah, there's a really good example of that down at one of the shipyards in the Norfolk, Virginia area. They were finding that welds weren't getting completed, right? So there's why aren't welds getting completed? How much actual welding time are my welders doing on average a day? 1 hour. They monitor the trigger time of their welding machines, 1 hour on average per welder. So all that data is being aggregated in that welding unit. All they did was build a simple app that pulled all the data out of the welding machines that each welder had, and they turned it into a game. Now the welders have competitions every week. Who could weld the most in a week? They have prizes and belts and championships. But now their welding time is about 5 hours a day. So they 5x welds purely by collecting data that was already available to them in the machines that they had, and turned it into a fun game, empowered their workers to be more effective through fun and activities.
Again, and you heard that this morning too, especially with reference to younger people. It's about empowerment, but that's for everybody. Whoever works for you, whatever you're doing, if you empower them a little bit to really understand how they contribute to the business and give them the data to understand how they're doing and how the business is doing, you'll find that they're going to really start to get engaged in what's going on. So that has a lot to do with this notion of digital lean. Because you can do an exercise, as you say, and put it on the wall or in the drawer. But if we do this, now it's a living thing. It's live. It's not an event. It's going on continuously. Because people have to put some screens up on the shop floor and show how we're all doing. graph chart wise. Does that make sense? So, I guess what we're really talking about, what you heard this morning, is really this is a data-driven process. It's really about using the data in your business that's living around on the floor of your business. You probably don't realize how much data is running around your company. That's really, you don't have to go do anything fancy for that. Some of it's sitting in your accounting system because you know what you sold to who and how much money you made. Some, you know how much stuff you're buying from whom. That data is just as important to the digital enterprise, to the factory floor automation, as having all your machines connected to fancy computer graphics about how they're performing. So by harvesting just that available data, we can turn that data into information, and that information is going to give us insight, and with that insight we can create new value in the business. And at the center of this whole thing that was pointed out to us actually in the last session is the people in your business. They're in the center of this action. So if we can start to figure out how to take the data you already have in simple ways and get it into information and get it to the people, we'll start to identify where the bottlenecks are, where the opportunities are to fix things, and fix them very quickly. So we want to talk a little bit later today. We want to show you some really, really easy and very, very low cost self-service ways to be able to start to get that factory floor digital data flowing within your business. You have a question or something?
So, we've been talking a lot about data, turning data into information into insights and value. But it really comes down to how do we get there? Where do we start? Well, you really need to start and understand what that roadmap, what that implementation point will be. And that all starts by promoting your Industry 4.0 initiative in your organization. Industry 4.0 and a successful Industry 4.0 initiative is not a single person effort, it's not a single group effort, it's not even a department, it's your entire organization. If you don't get everyone between your executive suite down to your shop floor mechanics on board, it's going to fail. You will not have a successful implementation. You're going to see too many hurdles and roadblocks, which is going to cause you as champions to revert back to your old standard ways of doing business, which will not help you at the end of the day grow and modernize and outperform your competition. So, we covered promoting, everyone's on board, everyone's going rah, rah, you have your stakeholders across your organization, you all get in a room. Well, we need to identify which areas of the business we're actually going to go attack first. I highlighted 3 pretty common areas that we see in small to medium-sized businesses. We saw on the board earlier, you also have engineering and supply chain and warehousing. There's a dozen of them that you address in a full-scale program. But at the very least, you look at your infrastructure and your floor layout. Do I have connectivity, right? Do I have Wi-Fi? Do I have Ethernet? Are my machines connected to each other? Do I have a central repository of data? Do I have that single source of truth? Is my factory floor actually laid out the way it should for the parts I'm making? Do I make multiple parts? Do I need a modular floor in order to move things around, as I get new orders and new shipments? Equipment and technology. Am I utilizing my new piece of, my new CNC machine, my new 5-axis, got all these sensors and doodads? I'm actually using it to its fullest potential. Am I maximizing its output? More than likely, probably not. Well, let's figure out how we actually go about and maximize those new technologies, how have them work together to do that. And then lastly, personnel. We have a lot of good tribal knowledge there on the floor. Everyone knows how to do their job. Some people have little tweaks and things they keep to themselves. Well, why not share that with the next operator on the next shift? Being able to capture and retain that information of each individual and having a central repository that can be shared out with everyone else and have its own self-fueled training, is invaluable. So it's bringing your staff along on this Industry 4.0 ride. Once you know the areas you're going to attack and the different sectors of those, you're going to go into planning. What is the most realistic implementation plan that we can do as a business, remaining profitable? Well, one of the easy ways is to go after your low-hanging, high ROI activities first, because what you could do once you do that first initiative with that initial capital, take that ROI, feed it back into your I4 plan, and that will exponentially increase your output. And then lastly, it's actually execution. Having identified stakeholders that are held accountable the entire way, because many times real life gets in the way, real life of work, and you have that next fire you have to go put out, because you're going to have fires along the way. First, because what you could do once you do that first initiative with that initial capital, take that ROI, feed it back into your I4 plan, and that will exponentially increase your output. And then lastly, it's actually execution. Having identified stakeholders that are held accountable the entire way, because many times real life gets in the way, real life of work, and you have that next fire you have to go put out, because you're going to have fires along the way. It's always looping back to your core initiative, growing the business and executing on that plan that you developed.
So what we're really trying to do here is to say, how can we build a true business case, a holistic plan that's about digital transformation, Industry 4.0, these words in your smart manufacturing, such that it really impacts the whole business at the top line as well as at the bottom line, right? And how do you become a participant in the connected infrastructure of both the supply chain that supplies you and the value chain that you participate in to generate value and revenue for your business. And with this process, we really would want to do that. So, but the question is, how are you really going to get started in this journey, right? Especially, how are you just going to get started being able to simply connect things? Probably not going to go out and, as we said before, hire data scientists and, computer scientists and electrical engineers to figure out how to, right? You probably don't have the money to do that, nor do you really want to. So is there a way to start to get your machines and your factory connected so you can start getting the kind of information you need to make a difference? So, how do you get the data? How do you start this? Now we're transitioning, so just some simple ways to be able to start to get the data flowing on your machines without having to go in and re-architect them, upgrade the controllers, call people in for is there a self-serve way? And we have no financial or business axe to grind or relationship to these things we're going to show you, but we're excited about what we found in the market, what's happening in the marketplace. And there, in fact, are interesting businesses in the last, say, 5 years that have gotten into the idea, what can they do where they can sell it to you as a service, where it's self-start, do it yourself, get it over the internet, pay a small amount of money, like $100 a month, and be able to start to get the information that'll help you get your factory connected, get that information that will run it better, but also help you empower your employees with data. And Brian and I were in October at a Maryland MEP event, and we weren't doing this there, but they were talking about the same kind of things. And this company, has anybody heard of this company, Emperor? You have. Okay.
Yesterday at East Tech.
Yes, they were at East Tech, I found out yesterday. They actually are founded in Chicago, and they've mostly been worrying only about selling their stuff into the Midwest, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana corridor, if you will, right? Classic, why not? There's a lot of machine shops there. And they're thinking about branching out, but we were really fascinated. We walked by this table, and there was this table, and these guys really did a wonderful thing. They found a way to connect to your machines, super simple, something you can do all by yourself, and then get it. So they have this little blue thing down here, you see, right? That's a load sensor, right? This is the wire. You snap it on there, you plug the wire into their little blue box. Their blue box either goes over your internet or goes over the cellular network to their cloud, where they securely capture, as a result of that load sensor, they're going to be able to tell you how your machines are performing, what's the up and down time of your machines, what's the utilization machines, how are your machines running, because just that kind of data from that load sensor is enough. You can do that yourself. They'll charge you $100 a machine to do it. And as soon as it's connected, log on to the internet and you're going to get some interesting analytics. once you do that, then you can find companies like this, which then try to combine that information and take it from that cloud. Just no code, point and click. If you can draw a PowerPoint slide, you can run these kinds of things, and there's a bunch of these in the market now. Again, low-cost software that you can get over the internet that starts to let you combine the data you just got from your factory floor with the data you might have having to do with your business, or the data on how much, or your energy utilization, and understand how much energy you're using per unit, thing you're making, or per unit operation or machine you're operating, and understand that, and ultimately then integrate that with some augmented reality capability that lets you now take that information in the context of your process, and deliver to your operators true digital integration to the data, to the process they're doing, maybe digitized work instructions, or ways in which to interact a machine where the data and the live video of the machine can come together in these kinds of ways, whether it's a headgear or, giving people, everybody one of these is really not very expensive these days, because the kind you need there is going to cost you a couple $100 a shot.
Many people have iPhones already in their pocket or an Android device, either company issued or personal, that's already separated out. You're leveraging the tools you have and just providing a means to make what we're so used to, FaceTimes, video calls, more empowering, and be able to have that video call and say, let's mark it up. It's not that wire, it's this wire. Draw that line, use augmented reality to interact with that world through the video, so that person can troubleshoot quicker. We did a study years ago that a service firm implemented AR-based video remote assist. What they did is they found that they've reduced 85% of all service calls and the need to fly and travel to that piece of equipment in the field, purely because they enabled their customers with a means to communicate with the service technician and accurately walk through the process by marking up the real world in front of them.
Think of this in the case of you have a guy who's working on the machine, and he's really a little bit confused about how to get the piece he's got to work on into that machine in the right orientation to get it to work. It'd be really great if all he had to do is do click, and maybe the guy who really knows his home. Well, now he's there with him, together. Saves a lot of time, certainly saves throwing out a bad piece of work because he didn't keep everything the first time. So these are the kinds of things. So what we have here is we really want to show, so once you connect those load servers, those load sensors, as soon as you log on to the internet, you get these kinds of charts. How are your machines doing, right? What's the visibility there? Who's working on what? This is just from a load sensor, right? Just clicking through this. This is their thing, but I think you get the idea. That right, left thing. Where are the alerts? You can get a lot of information about what's going on, tie that information into the job codes if you want, other things. So that's a very simple way to start. Once you're done doing that, you start to use the other kind of software, the analytics software we talked about. What happens is also over the web, suddenly you can combine that information with your energy information, for instance, which is what's going on here, and understand how that's being utilized in your business. You can share these informations with the factory floor. You can share them with the people running the business, how they're doing with respect to things. You can connect this information. May do something, may do nothing. Understand on a time basis how are things running in the business and how to combine what kind of information from the floor with business information and have context for everybody in the company. So easy ways to do this. So we spent $100 to connect the machine and get some really interesting data on operational utilization. It's something we didn't have to have a setup chart or have some team come in and do for us with an expert. Just do it ourselves. And then that data can flow into something that's online, point and click, no code, this. And lastly, you can take that and put it into these augmented reality.
Augmented reality tools. Yeah, and you all did that for under $20,000, and you just took your first step, in your Industry 4.0 initiative, your Industry 4.0 plan for your company.
Now, in the case of some people, this is just something I didn't realize. Another way to think about this technology is what happens when what it is you make and sell has some role in somebody else's product. You want to see how it's doing. This might be where you actually enable your product and you're seeing how is your product operating at your customer's locations. I would really like so we can see where this stuff is going. Have a map. Give us a little bit of a real-time insight as to how, based on what KPIs is doing in these different places. So again, once we got this data flowing and connected, we got a lot of context really fast without the investment of, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to the really big iron producers who want it. There are some big companies out there, UCC and Rockwell and Schneider and stuff, but it's probably really expensive. And then there's these guys who are really in the market and they're really focused on how to get this all the way down to something affordable for a really small business. So we're trying to tell you that those things exist, those solutions exist, now are on the market and can fit into a strategy. So it's quite realistic to have digitalization, digital transformation, smart manufacturing strategy now that's affordable. The first step generates enough economics that can afford to.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this view here and being able to monitor and track, say, your products in the field. If you make a smart product, maybe a phone home application, is new product opportunity. There's a few times, few customers you see or they see that their product's not actually being used the way it was designed. It's being pushed outside of its normal parameters, and organizations go, there's an opportunity here. The product managers take that and lo and behold, there's a new prototype for a new line of product out of that company within the next year or so, because they identified enough of their customers are pushing their existing products out of its normal parameters. So, it's all not just seeing the data, but understanding it and seeing how we can tie it back to, the overall business that you have.
Do you want to demonstrate any of the thing on the pad or
Good, yeah.
pass on?
That got a little weird last time.
Okay, so, and this is just another view of how you can then use the same thing if you think about it, where now you have this data's flowing, it's in a place that you can simply use it without special knowledge, where you could probably have certain operators, especially if you start getting people in there who are going to be in their 20s and 30s, they're going to be able to actually operate this stuff to help create those perspectives used by themselves, creating the kinds of reports and analysis or analytics that you're interested in. Hey, I want to see this as it relates to that. And being able to do that simply.
And since it is all accessible, you really are truly empowering your workforce, top, bottom, top, because all these tools that you could be looking at in your office could also be available to people on the shop floor. But instead of maybe giving them a holistic view of your entire facility, you're giving them a holistic view of that machine. So that operator knows the ins and outs. They're predicting trends before they even happen, because you just gave them a different view of the same tool that's being leveraged somewhere else. So, being able to connect data and people to data is very, very powerful.
So our message today is one, step back, get a strategy, make a plan a roadmap that makes sense. But number two, I think, is to inform everybody that we've come to a place in, I guess, the evolution of the digital technology that is accessible and available. There are people making it available at a very, very low cost in a very simple way that's definitely no more complicated than we're trying to get our cell phone, our smartphone up and running with our phone. So we think the barriers to entry are a lot lower. we're showing you a couple. For every one of these, there's 5 more. You know, but any comments or questions? Yes.
Do all these technologies, are they all based on the MT Connect protocol, or is MT Connect a unique protocol in the industry?
That's a really good question. And I think the right answer to that is no, they're not necessarily. Not yet. Some folks, most of these have built into them to use industry standards to do the local connections to the current machines that have controllers. So OPCUA is a really standard way that every programmable logic controller and machine controller in the world talks, whether it's made by Siemens or Rockwell or Mitsubishi or whoever. Some of them are going into MT Connect is really in the machine tool industry. There's a more general internet protocol, which it's really the subset of, that talks to all the other kind of things. So how do you talk to the compressors on your air compressor system at the same time that you're talking to your machine tool, at the same time you can get your energy meter data? And that's more the level these are running at. So there's an internet protocol for transferring the data, but there's also a local area network protocol that all the machine tools and other controlled equipment and other assets in your business talk.
So is there an option to get some of this analytics local rather than, not every company wants to put their information out on the web to a degree, and I get privacy, encryption, blah, 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 but the reality is it comes with that. Everything on the internet thing. So, like Pluto Analytics, do they have modular, is there a company
So the
like
Pluto
that?
Analytics and the companies like that stuff is on-premise or in the cloud. So
Okay,
in that
so you
case,
have
it
the
does
option to
exactly
do
what you want. And it has protocols in it, like you heard about this Kepler company from PTC. That's kind of built in, so it talks to most everything in your shop. If you want to do something, though, that's as clever as the amplifier, where they just have something like a load cell that goes
Right.
on to get everything connected, unfortunately, their mentality and their business model in the world is cloud first.
Okay.
The world's really going cloud first.
No, I get that.
Yeah, but we
Like I said, I'm
appreciate
old, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the
He
government
does a lot of
sector-
work with the Air Force.
Yeah, coming from a lot of the government sector, you know, there is a handful, well, more than a handful of companies that understand people don't want to put their data in the cloud, or maybe only certain aspects of their data in the cloud. So there are, you know, companies that still do a dual deployment approach, you know, on-premise or cloud, or maybe some mixture of the two, depending on who you are. I think Pluto is one of them. I know PTC has some that does
Yeah,
that.
they'll do both.
Amber, unfortunately not, because they do all of the analytics and machine learning themselves, right?
Yeah. So-
Their business model is click it and forget. type
Yeah,
of
because
thing.
their subscription, they're gonna charge you $100 connected machine.
Sure.
And they gotta go on that. But on the other hand, let's see, compared to them, there's a company called Datanomics out of New Hampshire. They've been really successful with this, but they go way down deeper, so they really connect to the machine tools themselves. But they again want to deliver it to you through the cloud. But there you're looking at something that's a little more expensive, and there's a setup cost. So you're probably gonna spend
I get that too.
right?
So you spend more, but you get theoretical privacy.
Yeah.
In theory, and all
Until somebody hacks it in.
and all those questions and analyzing what tools right for you all happens in the roadmap and everything. When you're trying to figure out what you're actually going to implement and why, you are going to do some type of technology tool matrix and be like, you know what, these are my pros and cons. That's the one for us.
Sure. I mean, if it was from the things we do with companies together, we would first use something like the XCOM Pluto, the local analytic kind of tool, to take whatever data you have in-house, that's both a guy called the IT and the OT, so to look what's in the business system, and to take that data within the context of what you have available anyway, before we did all the instrumentation, and start to understand right away, how does that data give us some insight where we have improvements that generate some benefit right away, and then move from there. You know, I think is right to say, there's a lot of discussion in the market, should the data really stay local, but the analytics become too far away. So there's a lot of people talking about how to do that, how to then apply, you know, advanced modeling, machine learning, AI, once that data is there, the benefit that you get is from bringing services to these other things with that data that you can pay for on a small incremental cost, you get the benefit. If you don't mind, you know, or if you can have confidence that they understand how to secure your data. So the confidence is whether or not we believe Microsoft or Amazon is really going to be
Is that just picking on current, or is it actually digging deeper?
It's just current, and the Amper has their own data scientist team that takes that current and turns it into, you know, the analytics that makes sense.
Like the sense module?
What's that?
Is it like the sense
Okay.
module?
Before you
Guys,
go,
we need to wrap up.
Yeah, just real quick.
We can tell you more.
So, my name's Ron Giardi. I'm a business development advisor at MassMEP. That's the newest term for the sales guy. So my job is to reach out and make you guys aware of the services and grant funding, how it's available. You know, a couple of observations around digital transformation. I'll tell you, if I had known that it was really about data about 20 years and trademarked that, I'd be a rich man's man. But it really is about data. It's collecting good data though. We have a lot of bad data as well. So a couple of examples I observed is this is our second session, right? The first session, you guys talked after, made some adjustments, got more efficient. So our third session is even going to be more efficient. So that's about data, right? It's just constant back and forth. The other part is you guys are here, and now that I'm on the dark side, because my whole career has been tactical, right, is operational, is that instead of me cold calling to get all of you, right, I now have all your names and numbers. And again, it's about data, right? More effective use of data so you can run your business better. So those are some simple examples. It's not this thing far out here. It's pretty simple stuff. It can get very advanced, but there's a lot of simple things you can do in your business today that run it more efficient. So with that, on the way out, the more data we need,